Welcome back inside Target Score Vancouver, all part of the Target Score podcast network. We rocking and rolling, and thank you for tuning in to episode 1, following along on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of fun stuff. Target Score Pod is our social handle at Target Score POD. So episode 2, welcome. I think we found a permanent co-host. It is Andrew Savory, play-by-play with the Vancouver Bandits. Also, this guy knows everything about the Vancouver Bandits. He was VP of Business Ops for a good amount of time. Good morning.
Good to be here, Chris, and what a fun start to the CEBL season. So much to talk about.
Yeah, and Bandits off and running too, 1-1 on their quick road trip to start the season. I said last week to Joey, if this roster is not maybe what we're going to see for the majority of the season, if they can kind of hover around 500 or a little bit above 500 until we get kind of midway through, and it's exactly what we saw this weekend, 1-1, starting with a big win in Saskatoon on the road against the Mamba. Let's start there.
Yeah, you're talking about a 29-point win, firing on all cylinders. Truly that four-headed monster. You and I were talking about it, Chris. We're texting during the game. You have Jalen House off a plane 24 hours later, dropping 33 points, a double-double performance. But then Tevian Jones, Michael Mulder, hasn't played pro ball in 2 years. Tyrese Samuel, automatic double-double threat. Then you had some bench contributions as well. Dom Parolin, lots to like there in that big win. But then Edmonton came out the next game and took Vancouver to the floor.
Yeah, I just so those those following along know, Jalen House, the newest signing with the Vancouver Bandits, related to Eddie House, bucket getter Eddie House. I believe he's an NBA champion with the Boston Celtics as well.
Indeed, he is.
And who's his uncle? Somebody said
Mike Bibby.
Mike Bibby, that's it. Former Vancouver Grizzly. Mike Bibby is his uncle. So I mean, I can only imagine what that 24 hours would have been for him. Landing at YVR. Like hardly getting to put some shots up and then hopping on another plane to Saskatoon. You know what I love about the Bandits? I'm kind of getting off topic here, but you know what I love about the Bandits when they sign players is Coach Kyle is like at the terminal picking up these guys when they get to YVR. It speaks to the culture of the group. But yeah, I mean, I think Eddie House. I think Jalen House is. I said this last week about Miller Kopp, but I think I might change my mind here. I think Jalen House is going to be a problem.
Definitely going to be a problem. He's someone who shouldn't be taken for granted. Yes, a little bit undersized, but he's quick with the handle. 11 of 18 from the field, filled it up from deep. What was it? His stat line, 10 assists, only 3 turnovers, and playing big minutes. I mean, 36 minutes on the floor, really being the floor general, which I think is so crucial because you talk about someone like Shamar Givens, someone who's not arrived yet. You really need someone like Jalen House to handle the rock.
Jalen House already top 3 points per game with the CEBL. Actually, most total points, but if you break it down into averages, he's third behind Evan Gilliard, to the second leading the way so far in Calgary. But yeah, the tale of 2 games, really, this road trip, like just a way different team you saw in Edmonton. I truthfully didn't see a lot of the game in Edmonton. I caught the last quarter in target time. But yeah, not the Bandits we're used to seeing over the last couple of years, and really not the Bandits we saw in Saskatoon. What did you see in Edmonton?
I know I was sending you a couple of fiery texts as I was watching the second half, so probably showed a little bit of bias there. But to be nonpartisan, I guess one thing that really stood out was the bench scoring, the secondary production. I think this is what you're going to see with the Bandits in the revenge game this upcoming Friday. Outscored in secondary production 26-2. Those only 2 points coming from Dom Parolin. Yeah. And that's just not something we're used to seeing from the Bandits. Like, they have a full roster, looking a little bit top heavy right now until those secondary contributions come in. I think they're capable. You look at the bench, guys like Dwayne Notice, Parolin, Mutabazi, what does he have in the tank? John Knight III, someone coming in from the G League, a little bit of a slower start, but does he have another gear? They're going to need to find that right now, because when teams are going to key in on the Jalen Houses, the Michael Mulders, maybe Tyrese Samuel has a tough game, he's getting doubled. What's going to happen from that secondary unit? And full credit to Edmonton, they outworked Vancouver in the second half.
Yeah, I was all over Miller Kopp. After training camp, I was like, this guy's going to be a problem. He's going to step in nicely and sort of fill the shoes that. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank on our
Kyle Mangus.
Thank you, Kyle Mangus. Thank you. Step in the shoes to be Kyle Mangus of sorts this year. He's longer. I think he has, more of a more of a overall over-rounded game than Mangus. And he looked great in Saskatoon. Looked great in some exhibition action as well here in Vancouver, but just didn't really settle in Edmonton. And I believe he was like 1 for 7 from beyond the arc as well. So I'll be interested to see if he bounces back on Friday in Vancouver when Edmonton comes back. It's like a home and home. So Edmonton comes back. So I'll be interested to see if he kind of bounces back on the floor on Friday. What did you see from him?
Yeah, I think he's playing a little bit nervous right now. I think he knows that a lot is expected of him, and he's more than capable. You're talking about someone who's had a great career in college, great career at Indiana, done well in the G League, especially with the Cleveland Charge recently. And he's got that range to fill it up, but shooting just 26% from the field yesterday. There was one play, Jalen House drove inside, a little tough catch, just bobbled the ball, didn't quite feel ready for it. And I think he's overthinking it a little bit. This is someone who just oozes with natural talent. Yeah. You know, he's a marksman. I think it's just a matter of time. I'm not worried about Miller Kopp. I'm definitely going to be expecting a good homestand. And he knows the rims at LEC. I think he had 6 threes in that exhibition game that you and I were both at. Yeah. I'm going to say it right now. Friday's going to be a Miller Kopp breakout game.
Okay, I like it. It's not easy to for Edmonton, it's not easy to beat the same team twice. We always say that about home and homes and and back-to-backs. But okay, I'm holding you to that. Miller Kopp, a breakout game on this coming Friday, as we recorded Sunday, but this coming Friday against the Stingers back at LEC. What'd you like from Parolin? I actually was all over Shaden Smid last episode and thought he would be the big university success story with the Bandits. Not to say he's not going to be, but Parolin has impressed me a lot as well. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, this is a guy coming out of Lehigh and Boise State, graduated, Pride of Coquitlam, 6 minutes, plus 13, 11 points, 5 of 6. That's just crazy efficiency right there. He's got a similar build to someone Bandits fans would really remember in the likes of a James Karnick. Maybe not as above the rim of a player, but definitely like a lunch pail type of guy. He's going to grind it out, hit you with a spin move, maybe a baby hook, drop the shoulder. He's not going to make mistakes. I think his IQ is really apparent. And I think that's why he's getting the minutes right now over someone like a Shaden Smid, because you kind of have to take your pick a little bit. I think Shaden lets you play a little bit faster if you want to get out on the break. But Dom is just kind of like quintessential textbook basketball, not going to make a lot of mistakes. And he can guard some pretty heavy forwards from the opposing team as well.
Yeah, speaking of Edmonton, play-by-play man in Edmonton, Doug McLean. We had a great chat with him on this episode. So he's coming up to kind of preview, what Friday is going to be like, what we saw last weekend in Edmonton. So let's get to that now. Doug McLean, play-by-play with the Edmonton Stingers. Joining the Target Score Vancouver podcast, play-by-play with the Edmonton Stingers. It's Doug McLean. How are you? Thanks for doing this.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, Doug, really exciting start for the Stingers season. Obviously, this is a group 15-9 last year, a couple of years under head coach and GM Jordan Baker's belt. 2-point loss to Winnipeg to start the season, but a big 13-point win over the Bandits. What changed between those two games in your eyes?
Oh, that's a great question, Andrew. I think the biggest thing, I think they played their game, as trite as that sounds. I think this is a team that if they're going to win, they're going to win because they're solid on the glass. They're going to win because they play kind of at a pace, not full on, we're going to beat you in transition, but we're going to play at a pace. We're not going to slow it down and be a pure half-court team. I thought they found that balance last night, maybe a little better than in the game against Winnipeg. And frankly, I think they defended better last night. Even though they only gave up 77 to Winnipeg, I thought they were the buckets the Bandits got last night, they had to work harder for those, I think, than Winnipeg did last week. So those are a few things. I think they just got into their game a little bit more than they were able to a week ago. And maybe the benefit of having that week in between games and being able to stay at home. So that was probably part of it as well.
Yeah, another game with Vancouver coming up on Friday, home and home, essentially. Tough to beat a team twice. Obviously, Vancouver will make some adjustments, but any conversation within, the hallways or within the group and adjustments that maybe Edmonton can make to get over the hump again with Vancouver?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think for them, it's the biggest challenge I see with the Stingers. And I don't know if you can work on this over the course of a week, but I still think their biggest challenge is going to be top end scoring. Dange has been really good for them. But I think if Vancouver can just say, look, we're going to try to take a guy like him away and the rest of you try to beat us. And I think that's maybe where Edmonton's they got to find some offense. I mean, like I said, they put up 91 last night, not a bad number. but they just don't have that top end scoring like a team like Vancouver does. When you look at what Jalen House can do, just to give one example, or a Teddy Allen in Winnipeg, they don't have that right now. Danger's been good. I think he's been, I won't call him a surprise, because as we all know, the start of a CEBL season, you never really know what you're going to get. Sean East was a mystery a year ago too and had an outstanding season. So you never really know. But I think for Edmonton, they've got to continue to find ways to get additional scoring from a few spots, because we know how good Vancouver can, how well they can score. I thought it was part Edmonton last night, and I just thought Vancouver didn't shoot the ball really well. House didn't get a lot of help. Tevian Jones was really good last night. A few guys struggled, I thought, shooting the basketball. So that's probably not going to be the case Friday. So look, it's two teams. Julius and Baker know each other well. So I think, it's going to be another fun matchup, I think, for you guys to call on Friday.
I'm really glad you mentioned Dane Danger, Doug, because I was really impressed by him last night. Obviously, you're talking to a guy who's come from Illinois, Memphis, big-time numbers in the G League as well. Early in the years of the CBL, I thought it was like a pretty guard-dominant league. There were some notable bigs, but I think especially when you look at this season, you're seeing the return of a Jeremiah Tillman Jr. Last year was Tyrese Samuel entering the fold. Now Dane Danger, potentially the new kind of double-double kid on the block. What does he really bring to the Stingers offense that you think is maybe different from Post that we've seen in years past?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what I've appreciated about him in the the brief time that we've been able to see him is his ability to put the ball on the floor, to be honest, and score through traffic. Like, I mean, we don't see a lot of back to the basket posts anymore. The odd time you do, we don't see a ton of that. But he's a guy that it surprised me, just his agility in the lane, because a lot of his buckets last night, Vancouver was sending 2-3 guys to him, and he's still able to work his way to the rim and get layups. And so I think that's been a little bit of a surprise for me, is his ability to do that. And that changes, obviously, how Edmonton can attack when you've got a guy with that kind of size who can create basically his own shot through traffic. So that, to me, has been the biggest surprise. We'll see how long that continues. I mean, again, teams are going to keep sending doubles to him, I think, and just try to keep the ball out of his hands, especially at the top of the lane. But that's the one thing that has maybe surprised me a bit about his game, seeing him here over the last couple of weeks.
Always a challenge in the CEBL with the guys coming late to the season, maybe leaving for summer league. It's a tough league to build a roster in. Yeah. I know Vancouver's got a couple of guys waiting in the wing. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name names, so I won't. But I imagine Edmonton's the same way. Are they expecting some guys to kind of show up in a couple of weeks, maybe a month from now?
Yeah, so one guy for sure that I can name, that's Nick Hornsby, who's obviously been around for a while. Cool. So, he's really important to this group. He is not a guy that's going to blow the doors off numbers-wise. You're not going to pick up a box score and say, oh, he put up 25 or he had 16 rebounds. But if you look at his numbers over the last 3 years, he's been right around 12 points, 7.5, 8 rebounds, 4.5, 5 assists. I mean, he has been just steady. And he's a real leader for them. And he's going to give them good minutes, game in, game out. You know what you're getting from him. So that'll be a nice boost for them for sure. There is another player that, again, I think I know the name. I'm not going to share it because I don't know what's going on. We all know how the CEBL works that way. So I think there's a little bit more support. And I would expect, and again, I don't know this, I would expect them to look for some guard help. Mason Bursey being out. I mean, he's much more of a defensive guard. He's not going to give you a lot of offense, but they may need some more support in the backcourt. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Baker is, again, whether it's the player that they're going to bring in is a guard, I honestly don't know. But if I would expect that to be an area that they're going to try to add a little bit of depth to.
Yeah, maybe talk about that backcourt because I'm really being impressed, and this is a bit of bias. My Wilfrid Laurier fellow alumni.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tate Donald, who obviously has a start in one of the 2 games. Last year, averaging around 11.5 minutes per game. This year, averaging right around 27. The field goal percentage, not quite there, but you're looking at points per game around 10, rebounds at 6, assists at 4. So obviously, Boursier dealing with that injury, as you kind of mentioned, out right now. But Tate Donald kind of stepping in and maybe maturing before our eyes.
Yeah, a guy in his 3rd year, played 2 years as a development player for the Stingers. Saw some actually reasonable minutes, back in 2024. Minutes a little bit up again last year. Probably, again, Sean East, I think, was a bit of a surprise just how good he was and the kind of minutes they could give him. So that may have, and that's okay, kind of suppressed Donald's minutes a bit. This year now, he had a pro season in Finland where he started and it was 37 straight games for them, averaged about 14 a game. And a guy that I think is coming into his own. you see a bit of the up and down. Last night, I thought, some forced turnovers trying to make things happen where you just don't need to. And a guy that you get a little more experience, you start to realize, I don't need to force that ball into the paint right now. Let's reset, regroup, see what else we've got here. We got lots of time on the shot clock. And I thought at times trying to force things a little bit, he'll learn from that. But I think he's a really great example of the development process and the connection between U Sports and the CEBL, because I think he got some exposure, got some minutes over the last couple of years, has a good pro season under his belt in the winter, and now coming in and expected to play some significant minutes. And I think, again, this is me. Jordan Baker has not told me this. I do think they may bring in some guard support where they can platoon a little bit, because I don't know that they necessarily want Donald playing 28 minutes a night. I think they need to manage the minutes a little bit. But to your point, Andrew, I think he's coming in. His shots improved. He's a much more consistent shooter. And I think, those mistakes that we even saw last night, I think they'll start to go away a little bit. You just realize you don't have to, on every possession, make the play. And, guys learn that over time. You need court time to figure that out. And I think he's going to get there.
Doug, what are your thoughts on, lots of changes with the CEBL as a whole over the offseason. We got a new playoff format with the finals and, a best of three. We have Ty coming in as president, and we have, now Mark Cuban is a part owner of the Brampton Honey Badgers. What are your thoughts on where the CEBL is headed? And, not maybe CBC too, like we have a new, CBC's back in the fold. What are your thoughts on where, the CEBL is right now coming into this season?
Yeah, lots of interesting things going on. I'm curious to see how the playoff format works. I think I think we've all enjoyed Championship Weekend. I think the concept of it made sense, but I think now a more mature league can step back and say, look, we need to find ways to, and Vancouver's a great example. They were the best team in the league last year by a mile, in my opinion. One game showdown, you never know. So give them an opportunity. Again, just in the final, I recognize, but nonetheless, you sort of build up to that. I think that'll be a real positive. Player movement is always interesting. And even here in Edmonton, seeing Xavier Moon in Winnipeg and Sean East in Brampton, a bit surprising that both of those guys are gone. I thought if they were going to come back to the league, that one at least would be here. So that's a sort of selfish, biased Edmonton thing. I think the other thing that the league's going to have to figure out a little bit is, and you guys alluded to it a few seconds ago, is the summer season.
Yeah.
Because the league's almost a victim of its own success in some ways, in the sense that the caliber of play, to me, it's always been good, but it's just continued to elevate. And now we're seeing steady stream of G League guys coming in, high-end guys that are looking to come in here and continue their progress to their next contract, either in the States or overseas. But we saw challenges last year with players in and out. The Ottawa situation with half their roster basically gone after they had a great run at the end of the year. That kind of stuff can't happen anymore, right? That you got to navigate that, because the credibility back to the fan base gets watered down when those kind of things happen. And so in some ways, it's a good problem to have, because there's a lot of good players coming in, but they're going to leave to go to summer league opportunities. They're going to leave early to have pro opportunities in Europe. And so I'm not saying that the league's got to go to a winter schedule, but it's going to be a challenge, I think, for this league to navigate how they talk about that with their fan base when your best players are suddenly gone for big stretches. That's tough, right? And unless you're setting yourself up as a AAA baseball kind of model in which people know, okay, geez, I'm wearing an Edmonton Trappers hat from back in the day. They were the affiliate of the California Angels in the 80s. You knew Devon White was going to end up there. Tim Salmon was going up to Anaheim. But right now with basketball here in Canada, that's not necessarily how we see it. So anyway, that's something I'm watching for. Again, I have no insight on that, but just something that's kind of struck me a little bit over the last couple of years as far as where the league may have to navigate things.
I think it's a really good point that you raise, and especially as the league matures. 8 seasons flying by in a second, and it's been a privilege, obviously, to see Edmonton those early years of success, and then you have Jordan Bacon, obviously retiring from play, entering the sidelines, being there for a couple of years. I mentioned that 15-9 record last year. It really seems like the West often this year could be a little bit crowded at the top. Obviously at Vancouver, it's early. They were 19-5 last year. Who knows where that record ends this year? Winnipeg looks off to a strong start, but how does Edmonton, for example, now that you've seen a couple games, how do they get over the hump, in your opinion? You talk about you're only going to get those series at the finals. You're going to still have to play those one-game showdowns along the way. losing 103-95 against Calgary. But what does sustained success over the season look like for Edmonton if Jordan Baker now wants to get back to that championship the same way he did as a player?
I think the model is probably what we saw last night. I mean, again, it's early. You just don't know where it's going to go. But I think the game they played last night is how they have to play to succeed. They don't have, and I keep using his name because I've been really impressed with them in his 2 games. They don't have a Jalen House. They don't have a Sean East right now. They don't have a guy that can, they had a lull in the second quarter last night. They don't have a guy that can wrestle a game back. They wrestled it back collectively in the third quarter and kind of ran with it from there. But I think they're a team when they're hard on the glass, when they're contesting shots, they're a little bit longer this year than they were a year ago. And again, I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to be a full-on transition team, but they'll look to push the pace a bit. But I think what they're going to try to do is what they've done in the first 2 games is suppress offense, try to jam teams as best they can. Don't allow those transition buckets. They didn't give up a ton of those to a Vancouver team last night that likes to run and really can run. So I think last night's the model. Now, can you bring that every single night? That's tough to do. And that's where having a guy that you can just lean on for 30 points can make a difference. And look, maybe Danger can be that guy. Maybe someone else can emerge. But I think it's the last night is the model. Can you bring that consistently? I think they can. Doesn't mean you're going to win 18 games doing that. But, I think that's if they can play a similar style to what they did last night, I think they can have a really solid year.
All right, Doug, we do this with every guest that joins us. It's we'll do target time. So, of course, target time doesn't have a score and a clock in the CEBL. So this is going to be the slowest rapid-fire questions you've ever had. Okay? Sounds
perfect.
good?
I'm slow at the best of times, so that's perfect for me. Perfect. I like it.
All right. Savory, you all right with this?
Let's do it.
Okay. Time now for target time. What team would you, if you could pick any team, what team would you like, any league, any team, what team would you like to call play-by-play for?
Oh, geez. Oh, it's got to be the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, They would drive me insane like they do as a fan, so I can't imagine doing play-by-play for them. I'd completely lose my mind. But I was fortunate to call on the color side. I did 2 Edmonton Elks games, so that was a big thrill for me. Nice. But if I could do an Oiler game, that would be pretty exciting.
All right, next one for you. What new suit color is Jordan Baker going to break out this year?
Great question. Question.
Wow. Does he have a baby blue one? I don't know. He's got a couple lighter jackets, I think. I'll go baby blue if he's got. I think he has a green. I think I've seen a maroon one. So let's go like baby blue, like Carolina blue style.
Love it.
Maybe this Friday. We'll see. Maybe this Friday.
Yeah. I'll send him a note after, make sure he does that for me.
Perfect. We talk about this with players all the time, pregame meals, routines, whatever the case may be. Do you have a pregame meal for calling play-by-play?
That's an excellent question. And you know what? It's something
or even a routine, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't have to be something you eat. It could be something you do every game.
Not really. The food thing's always been hard because I call university basketball too. So you're doing 2 games, and sometimes those are starting at 5:00. So your whole day kind of gets thrown off a bit. So, I am a bit superstitious on things, but I'll be honest, I don't really have much of a routine when it comes to that. So I'm not very exciting that way. What do you guys do?
Actually, the Bandits supply pizza pregame, so I shove a slice of pizza in me pregame. But honestly, I don't really have a pregame routine either. I don't even do coffee or tea or anything like that. It's just
really
slam a slice of water, obviously, but slam a slice of pizza and move on. Savory, do you?
It's funny. I've heard that like coffee is really not great for a broadcaster's throat before a call, but I'm one of those people, like, I just want to be as alert as possible. Like, you're probably going to find me with a cup of Tim Hortons or something before I walk into the building, just to be as alert as I can be.
Yeah. Nice. All right, go ahead. Next one.
Doug, we've talked about Dane Danger. We've talked about Tay Donald. I want to know one thing I always appreciated. I'm glad you brought up the Oilers. Like, for a hockey euphemism, I guess, I loved those third line wingers who could get you like 20 goals a season, grind it out a little bit, those fan favorites. When I look at basketball, who's a current member of the Stingers who's not being talked about that you think's maybe a little bit slept on, that you think fans are going to fall in love with this year?
Well, it's a guy that people be familiar with both in Vancouver and Edmonton. That's Mike Nuga.
Yes.
I just think he's a guy that, again, he's not going to blow the doors off on the box, with the box score, but he's going to bring you good minutes and energy every single night. And I think for this team especially, I think he's super valuable. And it's funny, he played his first game of the season last night, and there was, fans here, we have a pretty consistent fan base, and I think having him back was nice. You can sort of feel a bit of the energy in the building when he stepped on the floor. So I'll go Mike Nuga. I think he is a bit of that third line guy, to use that analogy. And I think he's really, really vital for this team going forward.
What player that is either currently in the CEBL or been through the CEBL, what player would make a really great analyst? Or even play-by-play? What player would make a really great broadcaster? Can be a Stinger, can be somebody else, doesn't matter.
I'm going to go Brody Clark.
Cool.
So
nice.
I was fortunate to call Brody's games as a Golden Bear, and then obviously with the Stingers. Super nice guy, super smart guy. You can have great conversations with him. I think he'd be awesome, especially on the analyst side. I think he'd be fantastic. I
remember doing one sideline hit with him last year or a couple seasons ago. Anyways, I'll second that. He's a very articulate, very nice guy, has lots to say, always a good chat.
Yeah.
Given we're doing target time, season on the line, who do you got taking that final shot if you have a chance for the game to win?
Again, I'll go with the guys that I've seen. I'm going Xavier Moon. I just think, most clutch player I've seen, best player I've seen come to the league, and there have been a lot of them. But just a player that I think was able to elevate his own game, elevate players around him. And if I've got one shot, I'm putting the ball in his hands.
Love it. All right, that concludes Target Time. Doug, appreciate you doing this today, man. I know it was kind of last minute, but thanks for jumping on. And hopefully you tune in on Friday. It should be another good battle on Friday.
Guys, anytime you need me, I'm happy to hop on and have a great call on Friday. Should be a good one, like you said.
Great stuff there from Doug McLean, play-by-play with the Edmonton Stingers. Yeah, good stuff to look forward to coming up on Friday. Edmonton back home opener for the Vancouver Bandits, and these fans are going to show up and show out. A couple of 4 or 5 sellouts last year, and I imagine the LEC is going to be rocking for the home opener on Friday.
It's going to be a big-time crowd, and you see it in hockey, you see it in basketball, that BC-Alberta rivalry, and so much when you look at history of these teams. Full credit to Jordan Baker. It's a different roster construction, but Vancouver was 4-0 against them last year. I think it was plus 67-point differential, but that's a thing of the past. It's already a 13-point win for Edmonton, and I think they're going to come in and try to punch Vancouver in the mouth again. So, head coach Kyle Julius likes to take things personally. He's going to be ready for the response. But then you have Calgary, new head coach. I think it's Perry Huang is coaching over there. And Calgary, as fans will remember at LEC, Evan Gilliard played villain, and he's going to be back again. BC fans have a long memory, and they're going to remember those free throws that iced the game. So I'm expecting 2 big-time crowds at the LEC this weekend. Yeah,
the Calgary Surge in town on Sunday. So it's Friday, Sunday this weekend at LEC. And yeah, like you mentioned, the rematch of that, crazy finish in the playoffs last season. So I imagine both teams are going to be feeling some ways heading into that one. So yeah, Friday, Sunday at LEC, Edmonton, and Calgary. Let's get back to what we're looking forward to, or what we're looking or expecting out of the Bandits, for this weekend on the floor. This team, don't forget, led the league in assists last year. And so only 6 assists against Edmonton. Is that correct? They had 21 against Saskatoon and only 6 against Edmonton. So quite the drastic difference there. And they got to get back to, those double-digit numbers and back into the 20s if they want to have some success this weekend.
You said it, Chris. Definitely a team that likes to average in the high teens, low 20s for assists per game. And that's Kyle Julius' system. And I think you look at the roster, it's kind of like a tale of 3 seasons. You have your pre-Summer League roster. You might have your Summer League roster. Some guys are going. Then you have your championship push roster. And Kyle knows that better than anyone. He's been in this game for longer than most. A lot of first-time coaches, especially in the league this year. So Kyle's very mindful of that. But at the same time, he doesn't just want to tread water. This isn't a team that wants to be at 500 basketball. They were 19-5 last year. I think they started last year. I'm going to have to get fact checked. 8-9-0. I'd have to double check.
It was up
when they
there.
started.
It was up there. It was like
yeah.
7, 8, or 9 for sure.
Exactly. So now you've suffered your first loss. And honestly, I think this is a good thing. I think when you're 19-5, you have a big target on your back. Right now, obviously, season's young. Winnipeg's the first team to 2-0. But I think it's good that Vancouver learns what it's like to, I wouldn't say get blown out, but they got outplayed. They got outworked in the second half, like we were talking about. They got to move the ball. They also didn't have a lot of fast break transition baskets yesterday as well. They weren't creating as fluidly off of turnovers. I think there was a little bit of isolation basketball that they settled for in the second half. Tevy and Jones, big first half, quiet second half. Jalen House, not an efficient shooting performance. Obviously, teams adapted to the scouting report, but when you look at his line from yesterday, as we just kind of look at the stats, 7 of 23, he's more than capable of being more efficient than that. 11 of 18 against Sask. And I think there's going to be a couple statement games. Vancouver, they need to bounce back now. You don't want to fall below 500 early in the season.
Yeah, about rosters. You alluded to it as well, just a little bit ago on the pod too. You know how this league has teams that kind of change 2 or 3 times throughout the year, depending on where guys come and go. Summer League, that kind of stuff, whether they have their playoff push in the Euro League or wherever they're coming from, and they're not really, here to start the year. I remember talking to Kyle. I remember interviewing him just for my own social media stuff, like prior to the season. And I asked him about roster construction, and he said that building a roster in the CEBL is one of the hardest things he's ever done as a coach / GM. And again, you alluded to it, right? Like guys are coming and going all summer. So, it's not easy to build that consistent roster and have the same, players throughout the summer and build some chemistry, right?
And that's where I think you talk about chemistry and leadership. You mentioned in some of your preseason hits, talking about Tyrese Samuel, Canadian Player of the Year, coming back. Mitch Creek, of course, not on the roster right now, not currently announced as a signing or anything like that. So nothing foreseeable in the future. So you're looking at someone like a Tyrese Samuel, and he's come in. He needs to control the paint, obviously double performances, but you had 74 points in the paint against Saskatchewan, and you had 22 against Edmonton. And that was a -18 differential. You just got bullied, unfortunately, by the Stingers. But the Bandits, they have that size, they have that physicality, and I think they need to not settle. I think they're a team that knows they can shoot. They love to shoot the three. Kyle did so in his pro and college career, and his teams are kind of a shadow of what he is in terms of that three-point proficiency. But I think they just got to get into the paint, attack the basket, try and get to the free throw line, and let their offense flow from there against both Edmonton and Calgary.
I'd like to see more from John Knight III as well. And who's going to step up? Who's going to be that? I know it's a next man up mentality typically with Kyle Julius and his teams. But who's going to be the bench? That go-to guy off the bench? Is it going to be Parolin? Is it going to be Dwayne Notice? Is it going to be John Knight III? I'd like to see a little bit more from John Knight III. I can't really get a read off of like where his game's at or what he's going to bring to this team. So I wonder who that go-to guy, the sixth man, if you will, off the bench. Like, who's that going to be for this team? I'd like to see more from John Knight III.
And he definitely looks like he has that in his bag of tricks. It's somebody who's kind of like a Swiss Army knife in the G League. He's going to average around 8 to 10, probably going to grab you 4 boards, probably 3 assists. And that's a mix-it-up type of guy who can fit into a couple of different roles. He's got some size. He's got some sneaky explosiveness. Obviously, he's got a little bit of that stockier build, but he has a quick first step. He can kind of take you off the dribble. And right now, similar to Miller Kopp, try to find his way a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if you're Kyle Julius, you need to know when you look at your bench and you're maybe in a 5 to 8 point hole, who can you put in the game to get that game back to within 2 points? And I don't think they've found that right now, but they're going to hope to this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you almost see this all the time with guys who have come into this league, for the first time. Like we saw it last year with Isaiah Brockington. I believe he won an MVP in Australia with the NBL, right? Like, so he's no slouch of a player. But it feels like guys take time to get used to, the CEBL and find their path in the CEBL. And maybe that's what we're seeing with Miller Kopp and John Knight III too. Like, a couple of guys last year, including Brockington, had a tough time, settling in. So I wonder if that's the same story with Miller Kopp and John Knight III. Because again, like these guys have G League resumes. Miller Kopp won a championship with the OKC affiliate. So like he's a winner too. And again, like, I mean, the tradition and the history with the Hoosiers, like this guy's got championship pedigree, but it's taking him some time maybe to settle in, and it's a very similar story maybe to Brockington and just being their first time through the CEBL. Maybe there's something there. I'm not sure.
It's an interesting point because you talk about the CBL and its rule differences. Obviously, we're all very familiar with target score time, but it's also FIBA rules basketball. When you look at that, you're talking about guys coming in, you're in a different country. Sometimes they're coming in 24 hours, maybe a little bit jet lagged. It's a very short training camp as well. Transactions can be moving super quick. Vancouver obviously maxed out its transactions last year. But I think when you look at this roster and those secondary contributions, I'm interested when Kyle potentially starts to maybe mix things up. I think you look at, obviously, it's quite young and you have a very proficient opening five. But that secondary unit, Mutabazi put in some really strong contributions last year earlier in the season. I'd like to see a little bit more from him, especially not leading on that jump shot, trying to get to the hoop. I think he has that athleticism. And I'm also I'd love to see a couple more minutes for Shaden Smith as well.
Yes,
I think Perlin's been nice, but I think if you want to try and play a little bit more up-tempo, it'd be nice to get out on the break and try and get him going because everyone knows Jalen House is going to score. Tevian Jones, I believe this is his third year in the CEBL. I'd have to double check that as well. So everyone's very familiar with his length and his athleticism. Tyrese Samuel, you know what you're going to get. But I think that secondary unit, if they can give you 15 to 20 points a game, I think they'll be comfortable this weekend.
Any idea when Shamar Gibbons is going to show up? Do you know? I don't know off the top of my head where he's playing right now, but I'd have to look a little deeper. But do you have any idea when he's showing up or at least expected to?
Yeah, we'd have to check in with Bandits management. It's something that definitely going to be keeping an eye on because he was a spark plug for them. I think back to a couple of games when he had that burst of speed and he was just super proficient coming in, different look, plays with energy, playing in France and Champagne this past year, averaging around 10 points a game, 3 assists, a steal as well. He's just super reliable. You know what you're going to get. He's someone who lives and breathes the point guard position. He's going to play within himself and kind of looks like they need him a little bit right now because when certain guys are getting a breather. But I also think the body language of this team needs to be a little bit high. I think they need to have a high level of communication on Friday. I think in that second half when they realized, okay, it's a tough road trip. We got a big win in Saskatoon, have to turn around, fly back a little bit west to Edmonton, 48-hour turnaround. They looked a little bit gassed. I know you and I were texting, you're saying they might be leaking a little bit of oil after that big win. Yeah. And I wouldn't have put it any better myself. I think a homestand is coming just in the nick of time. I think they're going to have a big crowd behind them. But they need to figure out what that next 5 players coming on the court looks like and what's going to be their mix when some of their starters don't have it going.
Yeah, Shamar can't get here quick enough because, look, I mean, who's coming? Like, who is swapping for Jalen House, right? Like, I see them doing this, whether one of them starts and one of them, they kind of just go back and forth. So that's what I see with those two. So it sounds like, Shamar can't get here fast enough. And didn't he break a record for team assists last year?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think was it 11 or closer to 15 maybe? God, I really should have done my homework.
Yeah, probably up in the ranks of a merit class and type performance. But I also want to give some flowers too when we talk about it. I think everyone knows Jalen House. He's a G League All-Star. I think he played in the G League NBA All-Star Weekend Rising Stars game as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I want to give a little bit of credit to Michael Mulder. And you saw it in that post-game clip of Kyle Julius where he's like, Mulder, you haven't played pro ball in 2 years. You just dropped 18. Mulder hasn't shot above 45% in either of these contests. But he's finding his way. I think against Edmonton, he was trying to play a little bit through the 3. He went to the basket a little bit against Saskatchewan. I think once Mulder starts going, it's going to take a load of pressure because Samuel's going to draw the double teams. House is going to be forced out really deep because they know he can penetrate off the drive. But I think if Mulder starts to be extremely consistent, kind of like 45 to 50% from the field, and that 3's dropping, this team's going to become all the more lethal. We haven't seen the best Vancouver Bandits yet. It sounds ridiculous. We're 2 games in. But if the fans are like, oh gosh, we had such a great start last season, this is still a really strong roster. And Kyle said it. Some people think this season's a sprint, but it's almost like a quasi-marathon sprint in a way. And I think Mulder's going to round into form, and fans are going to love what they see.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so we got Edmonton on Friday, Calgary on Sunday at LEC. We'll be on the call with Cheryl John Paul. Don't forget CBC Gem this year as well, so you can watch for free on CBC Gem. Thanks for coming on as the new so to speak, co-host. I hope to see you on the majority of the episodes. Andrew Savory, our new co-host here on Target Score Vancouver. Don't forget, we'll be back weekly episodes next Wednesday. We're aiming for Wednesdays, and follow us on Instagram at Target Score Pod. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Let's do it again next week. We'll see everyone in Vancouver this Friday.